As of the date this video goes live, Breath of the Wild launched exactly 6 years ago, on March 3rd, 2017. But 20 years before that, in 1997, the Zelda team were working on Ocarina of Time. Eiji Aonuma, the man who would go on to lead the Zelda series, was sat designing the Water Temple, working flat out to adjust the final stages of an intricate, complicated dungeon for Nintendo's brand new 3D Zelda game. Out of the blue, Shigeru Miyamoto walked up to him and asked, "When you slash a signboard vertically, it cuts vertically, but wouldn't it be a surprise if you slashed a signboard horizontally and it cut horizontally?" Aonuma didn't know what to say. Did Miyamoto want him to work on signs in the middle of designing a dungeon? He then saw what Miyamoto meant. Ocarina of Time signposts could be cut and would respond accurately to the direction of the sword swing. The broken pieces would even float on water. Miyamoto just smiled and said, "Isn't it so cool or what?" Eiji Aonuma didn't realise until much later that this strange conversation perfectly summed up Miyamoto's approach to designing Zelda games. There wasn't a good reason to program signs to respond to cuts or for the splintered wood to float, but they did it anyway, because Miyamoto thought it was fun to mess around and have the game world respond to it, even if there's no point to it. Miyamoto's signpost was always in Aonuma's mind when designing Breath of the Wild, a game which he claims embraced Miyamoto's ideas like no 3D Zelda had done before. Interacting with, and eventually conquering the environment is the whole point of Breath of the Wild. What if we took Miyamoto's signpost and turned it into a whole game? Everything was designed with this approach. If you cut a tree, it falls and can make bridges or rafts. If you burn some dry grass, the fire will spread. If you attach balloons to a raft, you can build an airship. Every time the player tries something new and gets a result out of it, it makes Hyrule feel more real.
I think I have a nibble.
Everything about Breath of the Wild is designed to transport you to this Hyrule, to make this world feel as real as possible. To reward experimentation and encourage engaging with the game in novel ways, the Zelda team had to carefully design the combat, the physics system, and, above all else, the map itself. The most realistic, open version of Hyrule yet. Tears of the Kingdom is set to release in May 2023, a game set in an expanded version of Breath of the Wild's world. Clearly, the Zelda team has faith that the landscape they designed nearly 10 years ago is strong enough to support an entirely new game. Except for A Link Between Worlds reusing the worlds of A Link to the Past, this is something we've never seen before in the series. We'll be returning to the same familiar kingdom, the same hills and mountains and fields. At first, I was hesitant. How could they capture those same feelings of awe and wonder we felt when looking out on Hyrule for the first time if we've already explored every inch of this world? Now I think I understand. Tears of the Kingdom looks like the adult timeline half of this Hyrule story. The world is the same, but things are different. Our familiarity with this Hyrule only adds to it. Like after growing up in Ocarina of Time, we'll revisit the same places and see how they've changed, with years of added development time. Tears of the Kingdom will show us the definitive version of the definitive Hyrule, refined and improved from its predecessor. But where did this Hyrule story begin? In 2013, the team took a step back from the conventional approach of designing a Zelda game, and instead focused on designing a seamless world that isn't stitched together out of smaller zones. When development began, director Hidemaru Fujibayashi started with Link in an empty field. He then began to decide where to set landmarks and how far apart they should be, eventually settling on a layout by comparing the game world to Kyoto, Japan, converting the time it takes to walk between landmarks in the city into how long it should take Link to do the same thing in Hyrule. Eventually, a rough map was laid out. Nintendo briefly considered showing the game at E3 2013, meaning that enough work must have been done by that point that they felt confident enough to show, but ultimately we were kept in the dark, until Nintendo's E3 2014 presentation. this was our first look at the new Hyrule. Eiji Aonuma introduces this landscape as the new world of Zelda, and little did we know just how true those words were. This is still the new world of Zelda, but not quite. Immediately we can notice some differences. Death Mountain seems much smaller and less imposing. Hyrule Castle is white and without malice. Surrounding Link are villages and houses that can't be found in the final game. In fact, the entire area he's in doesn't seem to exist in Breath of the Wild. We can spot dueling peaks on the left with a small wooden fortification nearby, perhaps a very early version of what would become Fort Hateno, the stone wall which Link and Zelda defended during the Calamity. This rock formation appears a couple of times in Breath of the Wild's Hyrule, as part of the cliffs of Quince and here near Lurelin Village, neither lining up well with the other landmarks to make recreating this shot possible. The general location of the dueling peaks, the castle and Death Mountain means that this shot must take place somewhere in the southeastern corner of the map. Perhaps these houses are the outskirts of a very early version of Hateno Village, in the southeast, behind a defensive wall, with herds of goats, and even what looks a little bit like the Hateno Ancient Furnace. The forested area doesn't seem to be anywhere near Hateno, however. The Zonai Serpent and Owl statues, and the design of the wooden bridge, much more closely resemble areas of the Faron Woods. It's clear that the central themes of Breath of the Wild were decided upon by this point. Link fights a Guardian using ancient arrows, and, of course, Aonuma points out that this Hyrule will allow Link to travel anywhere he wants. But Hyrule's geography clearly wasn't set in stone this early on in development, something that changed in the half-a-year wait between E3 2014 and the next time we saw this world, the Game Awards in December. Here, Aonuma and Miyamoto gave us a surprisingly casual look at what would become Breath of the Wild. Perhaps to hide some of the inevitable rough edges of a game early in development, we didn't see direct footage. Instead, camera footage of a TV while the developers talked. The quality is obviously quite poor, but that doesn't stop this from being the most interesting beta footage of Breath of the Wild's world. We even get a glimpse of what the map looked like back in 2014, where we can see that the basic geography had more or less been decided upon. There are differences. The Tingle Islands are instead just a peninsula, the Lome Labyrinths and Typhlo Ruins don't seem to appear, and there's a strange black spot on the Gerudo Highlands. The Lanayru Promenade area is instead a dark circular area. Whatever it is, it's very different to how it eventually ended up. It's worth noting that this area was originally going to be called Spider's Nest Mountain, so perhaps this circle could be related to its original design. It's also possible that this is the Korok Forest. In an interview, developer Manabu Takihara revealed that until about halfway through development, the Korok Forest and Kakariko Village were swapped, with Kakariko in its usual spot in the shadow of Death Mountain, which could be the case here looking at the map. While the map looks similar to its final design, things are still early on in development. We can even spot what appears to be a magic meter in the top left, something that obviously didn't survive until release. Here I've adjusted the footage to fill the screen so we can get a better look at the gameplay. Link starts near a cliff with a lookout platform, takes in the view and paraglides off the edge. From the map, we can see that Link is just in the outskirts of Hateno Village. It seems that they've moved around some objects like trees, and the watchtower has become a flagpole, but we can still see the allotments here on the right. The general layout of the landscape is the same as the final game, as we saw with the map, but the details are different. The surrounding mountains are different sizes and in slightly different places, and so are the smaller hills and valleys below. There's even what looks like an early Sheikah tower found on the cliffs of Quince, which isn't there in Breath of the Wild, but we can spot dueling peaks in its usual spot just behind it. There's also this, which looks like it's a metal disc or a shallow pool of water surrounded by pillars. There's nothing like this here in Breath of the Wild, so unless this is some kind of early Korok puzzle, and these pillars are in fact statues, then I have no idea what it could be. Link paraglides off the cliff, and the Ginna woods below are almost exactly the same. He lands down in the valley, in an area we can see has remained pretty similar. Again, the shapes of the cliffs and hills are slightly different, but the overall design is the same. In this clip, we can spot this, another mysterious disc, this time surrounded by green shapes. In Breath of the Wild, this spot is occupied by a ruined building, so again, I have no idea what we're seeing here. Next, we see Link riding through what appears to be central Hyrule, just north of the Great Plateau, near Lake Kalomo. Again, the general geography is the same lake, trees, and large rock, but there are many little changes in how things are laid out, making it difficult to line the shots up exactly. The final sequence of the Game Awards footage takes place near the Great Bridge of Hoshyla, just west of Faron Woods. Link rides east towards the forest, an approach which hasn't changed much at all, but then immediately is confronted by something different. 2 Zonai owl statues. In Breath of the Wild, this area still has Zonai structures, but instead they're pillars, with one half collapsed. Link fights a group of bokoblins at the feet of these owl statues. No bokoblins are found at this spot in Breath of the Wild, though there are groups relatively nearby. Interestingly, we can spot a yellow-orange light through the trees, which lines up with the location of a shrine in the final game. Perhaps we're seeing the shrine in its orange, deactivated state here. Link then rides out of the Faron Woods, first through a section that really hasn't changed much at all, with the same layout of trees and ponds, even the exact same Zonai boar statue. He then leaves the woods in the direction of the Great Bridge, loops around a large rock and continues back towards Faron, all of which appears very similar to the final game. There are even the exact same group of horses found here. There are some differences in the landscape itself. This area is a much steeper hill in Breath of the Wild, obscuring the view of Death Mountain, but otherwise, like the rest of the clip, the differences are quite small. Although the Game Awards were only half a year after the game's reveal at E3 2014, it seems that these months were when Hyrule really took shape, but it wasn't quite there yet. Despite Aonuma and Miyamoto confidently announcing that they will be able to launch the game next year, in 2015, development continued, and the next time we saw it, Hyrule looked pretty much exactly how it does in the final version. This shot, from the end of a Twilight Princess HD trailer in November 2015, takes place near Mount Dunsel in the southeast, panning around Link on horseback, showing off a truly gorgeous sunset. The game's in a much more recognisable state now. We can spot a shrine on the left, the Sheikah slate on Link's hip, and the general layout of the landscape in front of Link matches the release build. After this, we didn't see Zelda Wii U until the blowout reveal at E3 2016, where we got a name reveal alongside an extensive look at the game in pretty much its final state. There are minor changes between the E3 and final builds, like certain textures, names and dialogue, but the major work was finished. The game was almost ready, and the Zelda team had built their new kingdom. In just a matter of months, we'll be returning once again to this Kingdom of Hyrule, a world so familiar to so many of us. Breath of the Wild invites the player to lose hundreds of hours exploring its little secrets and corners. Many of us know this world like the backs of our hands, but the Hyrule we've spent countless hours wandering through is the world just halfway through its development, when you consider that Tears of the Kingdom has been in production longer than Breath of the Wild was. In a survey that appears to have been sent out by Nintendo to assess how people have responded to Tears of the Kingdom's marketing, one question mentions that the game will allow us to visit diverse environments from the previous game, and see who inhabits them now. Though we're returning to the same Hyrule we know, it won't be the same. Tears of the Kingdom will release almost 9 years after we first saw this landscape, the new world of Zelda. We didn't know it at the time, but this country of green fields and towering peaks would not just become the world of Breath of the Wild, but the stage on which a whole new era of the Zelda story plays out. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like or subscribe if you haven't already for more Zelda content. As always, a huge thank you to my channel members, in particular Myth Tier members Lily, ZeldaButaGrl, Papi Chris, Rysskylt, Vampyfoot, Thomas Drury-Wang, Celestial Kitsune, MonkeyGamerZOfficial, and Gerudo Eli. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.